Hello and welcome to the SME Focus show powered by MTDCNC. I'm Mark Weymouth from the Sensor Specialist Plus Automation. As always, the remit of this show is to highlight aspects of UK manufacturing or topics of interest to SMEs. Therefore, this week we're going to be talking about product design with Christophe Convert, owner of the product design agency Convert Design and MD of Bottled, a reverse recycling vending machine, or to put it another way, the thing that you feed with recycled bottles. Hi, Christophe. Welcome to SME Focus.
Hi, and thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming on. I'm going to kick off by commenting that both me and you are sitting in sunny Worcestershire today, but neither of us are from Worcestershire, and I think that's probably more apparent with your accent. So can you tell us, Christophe, about your origins, your childhood, and what on earth brought you to the UK?
Yeah, so let's get that out of the way. So I am French, coming from southeast of France, near Lyon, where I lived all my childhood and studied close to Geneva, in the Alps as well. So before coming to the UK in 1999, all of that because I met an English girl from Darlington in the northeast of England and decided to come back with her. And that's pretty much it, why I'm here, really.
Okay. I kind of guess that was probably the reason somehow.
Yes.
And Darlington explains NIFCO, so I'll mention that in a moment. You've spent best part of 2 decades then working in the UK automotive industry, either for vehicle manufacturers, Aston Martin, aspiring vehicle manufacturers, Dyson, and a lot of automotive suppliers like Plastic Omnium and NIFCO. Can I ask you about your roles and some of your experiences? What's 2 decades working with automotive manufacturers, suppliers and plastics, etc. taught you?
Yeah, so basically I studied for plastics in France to design a plastic injection tool and components product. And then when I came over in 99, so I found a job as a tool maker, which in the design office, which was a nice continuation because in France I was working in the shop floor in tool making maintenance shop floor, so on CNCs and milling machines and lathe and all of that. So start from the beginning in the workshop, then made my way to the design office of a tool maker called, at the time they were called JJ Engineering. Then they became More Systems. And then I moved into product design with one of their customers called Elta Plastic, also, as you mentioned, NIFCO, and that's where the automotive industry started for me, supplying components to Nissan. And I was getting being French, I was getting all the projects to do anything with France, so like Renault and Peugeot, Citroën, and so also translating technical documents, specifications and things like that. Yeah, and that's been the automotive all my life ever since. And then one of my dreams was to work in one of the supercar type manufacturers, and Aston Martin was a good choice there. And that's when Convert Solutions started in 2008, where I needed it just to be a contractor, basically. So I was on site helping their team. Aston Martin, it was cost down activities, so looking at the current product and seeing how we could replace those components like machine from solids or the components that were expensive to manufacture, to make them cheaper, to lower the bill of material of the car. So yes, that was and Dyson was just for 9 months really, until they decided to cancel the project.
Can you tell people a little bit about the experience with Dyson and what it was like being inside the building for that project and then the end of the project? I guess probably a lot of the viewers know about it, but I'm guessing also others don't really know anything about Dyson trying to design an electric car.
Yeah. The main experience I remember about Dyson Automotive was feeling very old. Among 500 engineers, there was probably about the average age of employees was about 25 years old, and I was the oldest one in the team. With the manager, it was crazy. Everybody was young. So I was brought in the chassis team to basically sort out all the CADs and the assemblies of the brakes and the suspension because nothing fitted together. And they realized that the CAD was a total mess. So they brought us in with experience of assemblies, complex assemblies and brakes and automotive components to sort it all out, make sure that all the fit and functions of the parts were correct, all the kinematics and all the envelopes that the wheel makes when it bounces in suspensions or when you rotate the wheel with the steering, that nothing came into it and stopped the wheel turning, for example, or the wheel while rotating would start touching the body of the car and things like that. So yeah, we helped them with that. So we were there for 9 months, from January 2019, until October, when James decided to can the project, realizing it wasn't viable anymore against the competition. They had nothing extra that the competition didn't have, like the lack of Rivian and the others at the time. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. I'm sure one of the things that caught people's ears is the fact that you've come to product design from an experience in actual tool making. So you kind of come the opposite way maybe to all those 25-year-olds who sat on computers and have no idea of how to actually make it. So can you tell me in a more eloquent way what you think the benefits are of your approach and your experience from the tool making into design?
Yeah, so one big thing I've learned from the beginning, I mean, I've started, we had to do drawings on drawing tables with squares and compass and all of that. So you had to be very careful when you design something, and you had to think about it twice before you put it on paper, because any mistakes, either you had to start again from scratch, or you used the little razor blades to scratch the paper to take off what you had and what you've put on and redo it. And when you spend 8 hours on a general assembly drawing and you notice a mistake right at the end, well, when you have to spend all that time again, it's like, yeah, you make the mistake once, but not twice, that's for sure. So that taught me how to be looking into the details of everything you design, making sure you start from before you design a product, what manufacturing process you're going to use, what fitment in tolerances you're going to use, and preempt all of those. And then I moved to into the CAD world, and I was able to bring all that experience into it. And starting in the shop floor as well made me think about how parts are manufactured. So when you design a part, you because you know the process you're going to use for manufacturing it, you can, like, for example, in plastic injection molding, you can think about draft angles, split lines and things like that. You start thinking about how the tool will be designed, and you taking all of that in mind makes you more aware. And when you give the parts to the actual tool maker now, there is always a few tweaks, because every tool makers will have their own little techniques or little tweaks they want, but makes the part almost ready for manufacture from the start. And you gain a lot of time in the long run, because you don't have to do like 20 gazillion iteration of the parts to make sure, oh, you missed this, you missed that, you haven't got any draft. The part won't actually come off the tool. You need to redesign it. And we see many times customers come to us, I've made prototypes, and then they tell us, oh, it's ready to design. We just need to do the design for manufacture now. And when you do the design manufacture, when you add those draft angles, when you put the gaps for tolerancing and manufacture tolerances, you realize the product doesn't work anymore, because either parts like thicknesses of material are too thin, or nothing works. So you end up redesigning the product from scratch.
Does 3D printing introduce problems? Do people present you with problems because they've designed a perfectly square box in 3D printing, but not a moldable box because it's perfectly square?
Yeah, I mean, 3D printing's got its beauty. We've got a 3D printer and we use it, and it's great. and allows you to make the product before you spend money on the tool. But you also have the case like the last customer. Yeah, we 3D printed it. It all works. We're happy. It just needs to be designed for manufactured. And when we looked at it, after a couple of meetings with them, they realized that nothing works. You couldn't make the parts, or the tooling would be twice the price, and they didn't want that. So we ended up going back to the drawing board with them, starting from scratch, and now they're actually, lucky them, they're in Las Vegas in one of their shows, demonstrating their product to their customers. So that's to launch it. So that's quite an achievement in such a short time, considering we've started in January. So quite pleased with that one.
You mentioned that you were the person that liaised with sort of the French designs and the French standards, and I noticed you've worked for companies that supply car manufacturers from different regions, so UK car companies, European car companies, you mentioned the French, Japanese car companies. Did you feel that the car companies influence the culture of the supplier or the design methodologies at the supplier at all? You have any thoughts on different regions and their impact? Were Japanese designs different to French designs? What was your experience from a design point of view?
Yeah, so it was mainly French and Japanese, and then English OEMs. And Japanese really shocked me, especially it was the beginning of my career in product design. They're really, once they've got a technique that works for a specific area, for example, designing a simple clip where two parts clipped together, there is no screws, nothing, just a plastic clip. Once they've got a design that works and they've made it and they've proven it works in real life, that will be put in the library as a lesson learned. And if you want to design a clip for another component, then you go back to the library and you use exactly the same design, exactly the same dimensions on the drawing, because they know it works. The French, on the other side, they try that technique, but and a lot of Japanese actually made it into the way the European works now. With the Japanese developed a lot of concept like Kaizen and others, and APQP and all of that, and that's all coming into the UK and France and Europe as well. They're very methodical, and if something works, let's keep it that way. Let's not change it. It's like, let's not reinvent the wheel kind of thing.
Yeah. Okay. So Convert Design, you mentioned its founding, so it's just over 18 years old. So firstly, I'm going to use the formation of the company as the inspiration for this week's musical reference point. So March 2008 saw Mercy being sung by Duffy at #1, entered the charts end of February and held the top spot for 5 weeks. So perfectly timed with March 2008. And I think you've already explained that you set up the business initially to do contracting at Aston Martin. Can I ask you, what were your thoughts originally going into sort of setting up your own design consultancy? What sort of work did you think you would do? Has it panned out? Tell us a little bit about being your own boss, so to speak, for 2 decades.
So when I was in even working when I was in contracting, is like you see so many designs that aren't designed from the beginning to actually work in real life. They're a concept, but and people don't think outside the box as well. I mean, that was Aston Martin. We had to do that a lot, to rethink components, because quality should not be impacted. The cost of tooling had to be repaid within 12 months of the new part coming in. So the cost save you brought on the part had to repay for the tooling and make money at the same time. So that was a real challenge, because not only we had to present every project to Andy Palmer at the time, the CEO of Aston Martin, and the CFO as well. And we had to prove to them that the payback would work, and the component would not decrease quality or customer perception, and that was a real challenge. So that's what I wanted to carry on as a consultancy, is that help customers, first of all, not pay through the earth for their tooling and their components, and have something that fits with their quality standards for their customers, and be successful, really. And think outside the box. Is so many, I see so many engineers, like talking about the Japanese, you know, they'll use the same technique for a clip or a feature, but the whole component will be rethought from scratch every single time. And that's what I want to do, is think outside the box. Is like we've got techniques that we didn't have 20 years ago, like laser welding is one of them, laser cutting, all of that. You can, I mean, that's not plastic injection molding, because we also look at sheet metal components and aluminium casting and all of that. But there is so many new methods now to manufacture a new material that you can use, that you can design things differently.
Okay. Do you have any favorite projects, or projects maybe that were funny, or any projects that are worth talking about? But I'm going to ask you not to talk about bottled, because I'm going to ask you about that separately a little bit. So favorite projects, amusing projects, frustrating projects, what projects come to mind?
One of them was the so Aston Martin developed in 2005. They developed their new V8 Vantage, which they call the baby Vantage, and then they decided to shoehorn. So that was a V8, 4.7 liter V8 engines with 400 brake horsepower. Then they decided that would be a nice little car to put a V12 engine, the one from the DB9, which was a big challenge, because a V12 is almost twice as big as 4 cylinders extra in length from a V8, which was, so they really had to shoehorn it in there. But they had a heat issue, so they've added 4 nice bonnet vents on the bonnet, as it's called, or the hood for our American counterparts. And they were all made from carbon fiber, and the set of those piece price was more than £1,000 for 4 carbon fiber bonnet vents, which was way through the earth. So we managed to brought in a cut down version, which was a mesh with a carbon fiber surround, and the mesh was already used on other area, like the front wing vents. We use the same mesh, so it would all match. And the sales team were very against it, because they were like, the bonnet vent, it's what sells the car. And I'm like, no, not really. That's the V12 underneath it that sells the car, and the fact that it's a small, compact, and nimble car, and the handling of the car, that's what sells, not the bonnet vent. Yeah, they look nice. So they've asked us to make a prototype. We went and made a prototype, and then when we made a prototype, they're starting showing it to a very few customers. They've chosen very carefully long-term customers to see what they thought about it, and they actually all preferred it because it was less shouty. And I think a lot of people who like cars, they tend to like a cars that looks almost normal, but it's got like a bit of a sleeper, you know. It's got a lot of powers and surprise everybody when he actually runs and the way he handles. And that's what happened, because it was less shouty, so they preferred it. So we went into production, worked with a supplier, and actually then on the option take, and the carbon fiber vents were offered as an option. And the sales team realized that 50% of their customers now were buying the car without the carbon fiber bonnet vents, and the other 50% optionized it to the carbon fiber version. So they've doubled the cost down by saving money on the bill of material of the car, because we saved about £900 per car worth of money.
Yeah.
But they had the uptake as well of the options, which is extra money on top of the price of the car. So they
I'm sure,
made more money
it
than
wasn't £900.
No, oh no, they were £900. That's for sure to the customer. But yeah, it's so that was a good little win because it's like we've proven that it works, and sometimes less shouty is not worse.
Okay, you talked about your heritage was plastic injection molding, and an awful lot of the work you do is plastic injection molding. Are there any particular challenges that spring to mind that you tend to fix? If you were to try and summarize what you do with injection molding design, what would that be?
So what I love most is when a customer says, I had a design done by an engineer from Upwork, or I've got nothing against Upwork or anything like all those websites, but I spent £150 on the design. It just needs 2D drawing, and we need to find a supplier to make it, a tool maker. And I'm like, okay, let's have a look at the design. And then you end up with a skin with nothing, no functions, nothing. And that's what I love most is explaining to them that actually your parts, you can't make it. It's not finished. It's miles away. Yeah, you've got a nice PCB in there that you've designed, but you've got no fasteners, you've got no bosses to fit those screws in. And that's where we come in, is so we almost take it apart and make it manufacturable from them. That's what I love doing. It's saying at the end that the customers can actually see it is manufacturable, and when he goes to the tool maker, there is no modification to do. That's really rewarding. So all that background of being a tool maker is really helpful on that point of view.
And can you tell us more about Bottled? So how did it come about? Where did the idea come from? I think where did the name come from is probably another question. What are the objectives of the project, and where is it in its life, and what are the futures? What do you hope for the future for it? So tell us about Bottled. Explain all about it, please.
Yeah, so Bottled is really in its infancy, even though it was started in 2022. So we had a company came to us and said, "Oh, we've developed a new sensor that can recognize plastic just by looking at it, shining some light into it, and then the light signature is called an infrared sensor. So you shine some light to it, and the infrared sensor detects the light signature coming back from the reflection, and that's when." And then you can attribute that signature to a different plastic, because every plastic will have a different signature bouncing back. So what people call AI is not actually AI, it's called machine learning. So you teach the system that when you see that signature that corresponds to that material, and you do that thousands of times until it can do it on its own, and you build a nice database. And that's called machine learning. And a lot of people call it AI, which is not true AI, but that's what they want to call it because it sounds fancy. But so they came to see us and say, we've got that sensor. We'd like to make it into like a machine that would accept plastics, bottle or other type of plastics that people can recycle, that would be put everywhere in town or wherever. But we don't want to do anything into the development of the machine. We just want to sell our sensor. And I'm like, okay. I said, I'm happy to have a look and help you out and see what we can do. So we started a little bit on the design. We had a few discussions. We looked for grants because obviously to develop the machine would have been all self-funded by ourselves. So started looking with Innovate UK into a grant. And for that to happen, we had to be a partnership together. So them and us, and we'd start talking about partnership, and then they started to have cold feet. They didn't want to do a partnership because they were too scared to lose the IP of their sensor because it would be shared. And I've explained, there is ways of going around that they can keep the IP, and if it's all set up in the contract and everything. But basically, they didn't want to do anything anymore, so they've stopped. And I'm like, actually, that's not a bad idea. So I start asking them how much they would sell their sensor to me. And when I saw the price, it was almost $5,000 for one sensor. And I'm like, no, that's a bit too much.
Wow.
So as crazy as I am, and that's what I tend to do in life, when I get sick of people or when I see people don't want to help me, I'll just go and do my own thing. And that's what I did. So I carry on with the design. And I developed my own sensor from scratch, working with a company actually, which is part of Connex, called Edlan, with Alex Wang. And we developed that sensor together, did some machine learning up to a point where it was ready for prototyping. They did the prototype for us, demonstrated it worked. And in the meantime, I've developed the rest of the machine as a bottle recycling machine, which
Okay.
and there, funnily enough, I didn't start outside the box. When I looked at all the recycle vending machines, a lot of them are huge. They're massive, and then some of them are small at the front, but then everything that is in the back is huge. When I mean huge, is like up to 5 meters long, and I'm like, you can't put that in a shop. It's far too big. So I developed a machine which is the size of a vending machine. So I've actually bought a vending machine for 50 quid on eBay that was broken down. And I thought I'll use it as a donor for the chassis so I can fit my bits in it and test it. And it's still in my garden outside. It's never been used anyway, but it was useful to understand the dimensions of the vending machine and how it was made. So we've developed that machine. And I was going to sell it under the brand of Convert Design, but we needed a name for it. So we used a branding agency and they helped us, and they brought a few different names, and we did like bottled because it's a bottle recycling machine. So that's what it's going to do. We thought the name was appropriate. So we carried on with that. And that's how we came out, really. And and we're about to build our first prototype. So that's quite exciting. And then once the prototype is done, the next step is build more machines and sell them, which is quite promising because we've got 2 potential customers already, so who are really interested and want to trial the machines. So that's starting well so far.
Okay, brilliant. Sounds good. Sounds interesting. And interesting, such a big project come from one gem of an idea. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, sometimes little things becomes bigger and out of hands. I don't know. It's definitely going in the right direction. Yeah.
Okay. Talking of little things or small and medium things, so because this podcast focuses upon the SME manufacturing community, can you offer any nuggets of advice, tips, etc., to the audience on product design? And maybe I'm thinking if somebody's sort of concepting a design, maybe before they go out to sort of formal design, how can they make things easier for formal design? How can they speed things up, maybe reduce their costs? What tips would you give to somebody thinking about designing something?
Yeah, I mean, if the bit of advice I would give is if you've got a product idea, don't try to go at it on your own. Don't think that you're going to save money, because you are not. You might design something that needs rethinking from the beginning, so you're not saving any time or money. You probably waste more time than not, because you're going to spend all that time designing something that doesn't work in the end. So don't be scared of asking for help. And it costs money, but you don't make any omelette without breaking eggs. That's the reality of things.
So concentrate on the concept and the deliverables, what they want it to do, but then concentrate on using their brains at what they know and ask a product designer to actually make it manufacturable.
That's right. What their idea is about, and put that on paper. And if we can help with that, we've actually got on Convert Design website, we've actually got a quiz we've developed that tells you where you are in your in the progress of your design, of your product design, and what's the next steps you need to do. And it's all for free, so people are welcome to look at it and do the quiz and understand where they're at and what they need to do. We give them the kitchen at the end anyway, so we give them every steps, every explanation of what to do and how to do it, and it's all for free. So yeah.
Okay, interesting. We touched on additive printing, 3D printing earlier. We talked about bottled being recycling. So can I ask more generally, what are your thoughts on the future of recycling and maybe recycled polymers? We hear, I was recently reading about recycling, the issues of recycling composite planes. We hear composite turbine blades and stuff. So thoughts, you probably know far more about the issue of polymers than I ever would. So what are your thoughts on recycling and polymers?
Yeah, so that's recycling is another reason we developed bottled, funnily enough, because when you look at the recycling process and how many steps, there is about 15 to 20 steps. And amongst those steps, there is about 3 or 4 of them which involve lorries driving a bale of plastic bottles, for example, from one sorting site to another. So when you put for example, you put your bottles or your recycling into your green bin, the council pick it up, take it to a sorting site where, for example, all your bottles or all your cardboard will be baled into a square meter type shape, be placed on a lorry, sent somewhere else to be further sorted, maybe by colors, by thicknesses, or by material or whatever. And then he goes to another sorting site before he starts being shredded and then washed and then sold to a reprocessor. So all of that is extra CO2 that we don't need, that is unnecessary. It makes the process really long, and it makes recycling material really expensive, because the more processes, anything in manufacturing, the more steps there is in the process, the more expensive it is. The more human interaction with the product there is, the more expensive it becomes, because you need to pay somebody. And that's why we want, so with our machine, we're going from about 16 steps to about 5 steps in recycling. So not only we'll collect the bottles, sorry, I'm talking about bottles again, but that's all about recycling. Okay. And the recycling process is far too long and doesn't cope anymore. We're overwhelmed because it's too long. 50, 60 years ago, it used to work really well, but now it's not viable financially anymore. There is in 2025, 3 recycling plants closed in the UK when we actually need more. And one of them is not a small one. One of them was owned by BIFA, which is a major worldwide recycling company. So they're not small, but they've been losing money for 3 years in the Northeast. So they had to close because it wasn't viable anymore. They tried to save it, but after 3 years, they couldn't. And I spoke to their CEO, and he said recycling is not viable anymore when we actually need it more than ever. Yeah. So that's what we want to do with bottled is, change all of that, makes recycling cheaper and makes recycling material cheaper so we can use it to make new product rather than using virgin and using more fossil fuel when we've already got all that material which is going to waste, really.
Yeah. Okay. Many people watch this episode when it goes out at the weekend. So can I ask you, what sort of thing do you enjoy talking to somebody about at the weekend, whether it's at pubs, the shops, or basically anywhere where you're not sat in front of a computer working, and if you're doing a call like this or on the phone? So what things do you like talking about when you're not talking design?
Yeah, so I'm a very sad person, and I love engineering, anything engineering, and that involved cars as well, because they're full of engineering. And which reminds me a story, basically. We went hiking. I love hiking as well. Coming from the Alps, I used to go hiking quite a lot, even on my own. When you reach like 9,000 feet and the only thing you can see in the distance is the Mont Blanc mountain, it's with a snow top. It's just like so wonderful. and so grateful that we live in such a world really full of beauties like that. But we went walking with some friends in the Lake District for the day, and then we came back to their place and had a shower. Then we had a meal, and we're just talking and something. And then I was when I was waiting for the meal to be ready, I just sat on the sofa, look at their shelves, what books they had, and they had a Hand's manual from a Peugeot 106, which was one of their car, funnily enough. But I thought, I'll read that, and then I fell asleep in front of it. Not because it was boring, but because I was so tired after the hikes. Yeah, we did about 26 miles in a day, which was including climbing, doing the 3 Peak Challenge, the 3 Yorkshire Peak Challenge. Actually, It wasn't in the Lake District; it was in Yorkshire. So that was really good. But yeah, I fell asleep in front of a Hand's manual. So that was but I like cars. I love cars, and not just supercars, but any cars. Especially when they look like nothing and they've got a lot of power and handle like a train.
Fantastic. Okay, I'm sure there's plenty of people who recognise that illness, should we call it, a passion for cars, particularly cute cars or understated cars.
Yeah.
Okay. Traditional question for the episode is to ask you, what have you got planned, or what do you hope to achieve in the next 12 months? And that can be business or personal.
So 2 things. So on the personal side, we're converting a pub into a house as well, on top of everything. In our pub into our family home. So I'm hoping that to have made good progress by the end of the year and have a kitchen finished and be watertight, because we've got bits of the roof that leaks, so that needs to be fixed now. And on the professional side, I'm hoping Bottled will have an investor or partner on board, and we'll have built and sold about 100 machines, and that we are on the way to success, really. So yeah, that's the plan for now.
Okay, so perfect segue maybe to next question then. So how do people find out more about Convert Design, and how do they find out about Bottled?
So I mean, we everywhere on social media professionally, like LinkedIn. So you can find us if you search for my name, Christophe Convert. We've got a website which is convertdesignltd.com and bottled.org for Bottled. But yeah,
can you just spell Bottled? Sorry, Christophe.
Sorry?
Can you just spell Bottled? Can you just spell Bottled for the people who are watching rather than us who know it?
Yeah, so Bottled is BOTTLD without the E, so .org. Yeah, it's a funny way to write it, but it sounds exactly the same. Well, to me anyway, as a Frenchman.
Cool, excellent. So before I sign off with the episode, can I ask, do you have a final sentence, question, observation, thought? How would you like to sign off the episode?
Yeah, no, thank you for having us. I always find podcasts stressful beforehand, but I always enjoy them. Talking about what I love, and basically that's what I would finish off, is encourage people to do a job they love and be successful, really.
Sounds a pretty good sign off to me. So I will thank you very much, Christophe, for being a guest and talking about product design and encouraging people to use product designers rather than spending their time doing what isn't their core skill set. So cheers, Christophe, for being a guest. I will wrap up the episode by saying the usual words, that if you would like to make a comment, a suggestion, and particularly if you'd like to appear in a future episode, please email us at inquiries@mtdcnc.com or contact myself, Stuart Whitehead, or Joe Reynolds. From me, Mark Weymouth at Sensor Specialist Plus Automation. Cheers, thanks for watching, have a good weekend. Bye.